Hey everyone, please like and subscribe to this video. I hope you enjoy. Let's get it done. All right, so as you can see here, I'm looking at a SketchUp drawing that I had to model up before I start the build, just so I can get an idea and get a better estimate of everything I need. So I take some scraps and I start cutting them down. It's really handy when you do have a ton of scraps because it saves on a lot of projects. I think this entire project is actually made out of scraps I had left over from other projects, so that was a huge help. I'm using a crosscut sled. This is something that if you do get into woodworking, definitely have, because it helps give you square cuts. It's easier to use than just a miter gauge. It has a longer wall surface and it cuts super straight, and so definitely useful. Then I'm just gonna go ahead and mark my pieces because I like to write on them. I just don't want it to be permanent. So it just helps me kind of get an idea of where the parts are gonna go, so that way I don't get it mixed up when I stack them. And of course, I'm just cutting and cutting and cutting more parts. This is like one of the most important parts is milling up the entire project, right? Milling up your parts, because if you don't have that correct, your dimensions are off, and you're gonna have parts. You can have parts out of square, and so there's a lot of stuff that goes, a lot of important things that need to be done before you start building. Here I am jointing a surface, so getting a really straight, squared surface is really essential on the face and at least one side, because then you can go rip it down in the saw. But man, is that important. That'll help you get the best piece of furniture you can get if you have square parts, and it'll make life 10 times easier, so you're not having to worry about it later. And here I go again using some more scraps. As you can tell, I really was trying to save as much money on this project as I could. This is a lunchbox planner, an old one, to Makita, but it works out great for what I need right now. I'm looking at getting a different one, so I do need a bigger one. My shop doesn't handle that, so actually going to move into a different shop here soon, hopefully. And I'm super pumped about that because I'll have a lot more room to build what I build, and a lot more space to build and not be crammed. Because man, is it hard. I love to be able to think freely and have space to think, and it's kind of crammed in this place. It's decently tall, but still somewhat cramped. Anyways, back on topic. Using the miter saw here to cut some parts again. Really important to mill up everything prior to cutting, to get into this part of the job when you're cutting parts, because it does help if you do like maybe get a gouge in a piece from milling, or if you have some snipe on the end of a board, which is kind of an indentation on the end, and if you cut everything down to length, or before you do that, then you'll have that indentation into your piece, your final product, and you'll have to worry about that or cut a new piece. And it's just it makes it easier just to cut everything to length after you're done milling. You have everything squared away. So here I am using the track saw. This track saw is a huge blessing because I don't have room for a panel saw, and the track saw is great for cutting panel parts. And so I use this to build my entire dry bar system, the corner bench, and the dartboard. It does a great job, so I love it. It's huge help, and so I'll definitely be building a bigger cutting table, a better cutting table for that when I get the chance, or I'll just get a panel saw. Who knows? Maybe not. I might get a sliding miter saw. Might be nice. If I could just get a sliding miter saw. Look at me. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyways, getting a sliding table saw is something I really want in the future. So we'll see what happens. Back to the miter saw, compound miter saw, if I must say. This is actually a friend of mine's saw, so I don't know if he forgot I still have it or not, but I'm definitely gonna need to get my own so I can give it back to him. He so graciously has given me that saw to use and borrow. But testing your pieces and how they fit and everything is really important. Another thing to keep in mind is when you are cutting and milling everything up, try to tape edges as much as you can if you think your teeth aren't sharp enough, like your blades, because you will chip out and you will tear out a ton of your pieces, and it will cause imperfections on it, and it'll be harder to cover up later. So I had some issues with that here. Sometimes I forget. It just, in the midst of building something, I can get so like, I got to get it done, I got to move, and I forget some of the most important things. So that's definitely important. Here, as you can tell, I am putting on edge banding and ironing it on. One of the simplest, easiest ways, unless you have a machine that does it for you. And then I apply pressure to get the glue to set really well and pretty much tie it all in. And so yeah, that's good. Let it dry for a little bit. I'll come back and as you see here in a bit, I'll come back and scrape off the excess with a shop knife. This is one of the I find it to be somewhat easier. I used when I was working at my other job building furniture. When it wasn't my own, we used a lot of files. We use files to file down the edge and kind of tear it off. I actually enjoy using just the knife blade to slice it off because it gets a really clean cut. You just got it. You can't go like crazy fast, obviously, because you can tear out stuff, but it really does a great job. And I've had success with it so far, and I love it. And so it does a really good job. And so I just take the blade, slide across, cut it off, and it is pretty much good. Take the sanding block, get a nice edge on it. Sometimes the glue seeps out too after you cut off the excess. And so it's nice to get that sanded off. And then here are all the pieces nicely and crisply. Is that even a word? Is crisply a word? I don't know. But that being said, they're crisply. Goodness gracious. So yeah, all the parts are done now. They're all taped up. So now I'm going to start assembling my pieces because I got everything cut now. There's not much hardwood in this project, which I actually don't like a lot. I usually enjoy doing hardwood a lot more, just because I don't really care for paneling. It's not solid wood, and it's not real furniture. It's just not to me. But some people beg to differ. So here I'm using the pocket. I was using the pocket hole jig there, drilling the holes in so that way I can hide the screws so they're not showing. And it's a great tool for cabinetry. It's a phenomenal tool for cabinetry. Definitely a must need, definitely a need for sure. You can figure out ways to do it without, but it is quicker this way and it's really strong. And when you get the entire cabinet system together, it's not going to fall apart. And so, unless someone throws it off a cliff, which if they don't like this build, they might. Alright, so I use clamps a lot, obviously. You know, one of the most important things as a woodworker, and I should get a sign that says this, honestly, I probably should make a sign that says this, is that you can never have enough clamps. I'm always running out of clamps, and I could always use more. Alright, so here I'm putting on, so all the shelves I did for this dark cabinet, I put on the hardwood edges since I was using scraps, I didn't have some pieces that were wide enough for the shelves, so I needed like a 1/2 inch piece of hardwood, so I couldn't use the veneer edge banding because that's like 1/16 of an inch thick. And so this was like 1/2 inch thick. Put it on the front, I pinned it, and I filled the holes later. They hid really well, so I was satisfied with that. And then I just glued it up for some more support and made sure that it was nice and pretty even there. I usually leave a little bit. You'll see here in a little bit that I usually leave a tiny bit over the top, like the top of the shelf. I leave a little bit overhanging, so that way I know it's covered, and I come back and I can flush trim it with the router. Alright, so here I am making the actual like design pieces, the boxes that go from that. There's 3 of them. There's one at the top, in the middle, and in the center, or sorry, in the middle. Yeah, center and middle the same, and at the bottom. And if you saw the picture prior to this build, you would have seen the design. And so super simple design, nothing crazy, but it's like a modern design. I like it. It's simple again. I enjoyed the build. You can do a lot of stuff with woodworking, so it's amazing what you can get into. But if the client doesn't need anything crazy, I tend to not do it, because anything like the more design oriented it is, the more I guess what's the word, creative it is, the more money it's going to cost to build. And so trying to keep this in a good price for them. This is the same client that had the dry bar system and the corner bench actually that I built. So pretty crazy how much money some people have, but man, it's a blessing to me because it puts money in my pocket, it helps me support my family, you know what I mean? All right, so now I'm just testing this base shelf piece, where this is the upper cabinet where the dartboard's going, and so this is just a small shelf area for that. And so here you see I glue it down, pin it, and then kind of just make a little box. Nice thing about this is it gives it some sturdiness and some weight, as well as keeping this entire frame together. When I have this box built at the bottom, it keeps the entire frame together. I used only 1/2 inch on this build. I didn't want it to be a super bulky piece, but since the inside of this box doesn't matter as much and it's going to be hidden, I could use 3/4 on that piece that I'm pinning in right now, and then I'll use 3/4 on the outside piece as well. And I think I use it on the shelf actually. I can't remember, but this just gives it some sturdiness, gives it some weight. It makes it so it's just a finer piece, a heavier piece, a piece that's gonna last. Because if you get something that's really light, obviously light isn't that good, because then like anything can cause damage to it. You want it to be sturdy, and so I usually add some weight somewhere on purpose, just for that reason. And sometimes I don't even have to do it on purpose. It's just the way the build is, and it's heavy as all get out. So take it to the saw here, these edges. So here this is where I left some hardwood over the edge, and I just cut it off with the saw. And then now we're back to this piece. More pocket holing, so you can see this pocket hole jig. It's super nice. They actually have wings that come with this pocket hole jig, but I didn't get that because I haven't really needed it much, to be honest. I've just used some scrap pieces of wood that were the correct depth, and it worked out fine on the sides anyways. So pocket hole and pocket hole. Make sure you obviously pocket hole the right side of the bottom, the side that's not gonna be seen, because that would be awkward. And then sanding. This is one of my, I would honestly say this is close to one of my favorite parts, because sanding changes the entire look and design of the entire look of the furniture, the whole entire feel of the furniture. It really creates that fine furniture feeling. Cleans up everything, makes it really nice, makes everything look uniform. Really, it's something that you have to do constantly and often to be able to fall in love with that part of the build. Because when you first look at it, it's like, oh my goodness, sanding for days. But it really does make a huge difference, and it changes a lot. Your mindset changes on it a lot when you do get into it and enjoy it. All right, now I'm just pocket holing screwing these bad boys in these shelves. And we're building this case out. This is the bottom case, and so as you can tell here, what I end up doing is, as you'll see, I build the top and the bottom separate on purpose, so I'm not carrying this entire tall. I could have made this entire thing out of one piece, one shelf, but it gives them the option, one, to separate the top and the bottom. If they don't want the bottom, they can just keep the top hooked on. But at the same time, if they do, or it helps me when I bring in the piece to the client's home, I can just take it in 2 separate pieces. I don't need help carrying it, and it makes it a lot easier. And so now I am sticking on those crown pieces, you could essentially say, those boxes. And so I stick them. I don't build the boxes separately because it would be hard to attach them. And so I do it this way. I put the base on, and then I put the middle support, the recess, essentially is what you could call it, and then I put the top on of that. So kind of see this. Watch this as I do it. As you can tell, I like to feel my furniture because it's too satisfying to just feel how smooth it is. It kind of sounded weird, so let's just ignore that comment. Combination square, what a beautiful tool. Such a blessing to have. Really, truly, there's a lot of tools that are a blessing to have them. But no, really good tool to have is the combination square. Mine aren't anything special. I do want to get a Storetta because those are nice, and there's squares I'll get out and they stay square. Some of these are not the perfect square, but they're barely off. They're good enough. You can get by with them. But in all reality, it does matter because you do start seeing those increments grow over a piece as you do cabinetry stuff. It's like, okay, I don't know how that got there, and then you're like, okay, it's probably because of my square. So here I'm screwing in the base of that box to the bottom, just make sure I don't go through the walls. And so very important, obviously, you just want to make sure your screws do not that they line up with the walls and stuff, or wherever you're screwing, so they sink into something and not out of in the open to where they're seen by the world. And it wouldn't hold anything together. One good thing to note with cabinetry, this wasn't as big of a deal on this project. I did do this though. I don't glue a lot of stuff together on cabinetry. Like, I didn't glue in the back wall to the side walls, because if I need to take something apart, then I can. This was a pretty simple build. I didn't do a ton on this build. Like this top, I would probably figure out a way. Like, I'd probably leave this like this and not put the cap on yet until towards the end of the project. I know it's ready to go and we're good to go and everything fits properly. Or I'd figure out a way to build the box out and still be able to attach it. But this is, since I didn't need to do that on this project, I just went ahead and built these boxes onto the cabinets right away and closed them in and called it good, because it was literally just one or two, I guess two cabinets, but one solid piece all the way up and down, so I wasn't too worried about that. And here I am again, filling my furniture, making sure it's, I think I was making sure that there's not an edge on it, because all that stuff doesn't matter. There's so many times that I have sat here and looked at a piece for like 10 minutes and then realized, what in the world am I doing? Alright, to zoom past this part real quick because I'm going to screw in some screws. Very important, since this is MDF, I mean it's combi core, so there's plywood in. Oh, here's the tip. I built this entire thing besides the 1/2 inch, because they don't have 1/2 inch combi core. Combi core is essentially, it's MDF exterior with a plywood interior, a lot more sturdy than MDF. Reason why I usually get stuff like this instead of just nasty like OSB, which you can't veneer OSB. I'm sure you probably could, it would be horrible. Or like just particle board or something like that, is because it's a lot nicer, especially for fine furniture. When I get combi core without a veneer, like it's just MDF surface, it's a really good paintable surface, but also creates a lot of stability as well. So that's why I like to use it. It's great. It's great material. You can usually get it from like a place like Liberty Hardwoods here in Omaha. It's a place you can get it from too. So here it is built. So you can see I put all 3 of the caps in, built them the same way, and that is the entire piece pretty much done, without the doors of course, but it comes together pretty nice. It's nice when a piece comes together like you planned. Ish. That's always the problem. It's always ish. You're always like, there's always bumps in the road. There always is. So here I am putting some dados into the doors. They are 1/2 inch thick doors. I didn't do really thick because I wanted to match the frame of the entire cabinet system. It would have been weird if I had 3/4 inch doors. I probably could have got away with it. May have not been noticeable, but to me it would have bothered me. So I did 1/2 inch, and that created a very thin thickness of wood around the actual door. I mean, around the panel that I'm going to stick in. So like it just is like an 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, and an 1/8 inch on each side of the dado. So definitely thinner, but no, they turned out really nice. They one thing that I would be careful with when you're doing 1/2 inch stuff is the pieces as pieces get thinner, they warp easier, and so that's one thing to notice. That's something I didn't pay attention to as much on this build, and I should have paid more attention to, but thankfully they came out pretty good. Cutting miters here, as you can tell, this saw is a great help, so thankful to my friend, and it gets the job done. You know, these, to be honest, compound miter saws don't cut the straightest miters. You really have to mess with them most of the time, but you can usually cover them as any small mistakes that they do make. Sometimes they don't cut exactly 45, where you have to work with the angle a little bit. Majority of the reason is because the blade is so long or so tall. It's a 12-inch blade, and so you get a lot of like vibration and movement, and so it messes with the angle just a tad. It cuts to 45, but it just messes with the angle because of the vibration, so that's kind of annoying sometimes. But definitely a grateful tool. Super grateful to have this in the shop as well. But here are all the parts for the doors, cut miters and dados, and I'm going to be cutting the panels here soon. Here I am going to tape the corners. So just a trick, not a trick, but a little tip for the trade is always dry fit stuff the best you can, because you want to make sure your miter, you don't want to get to gluing up and putting the panel in and all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, I can't even fix this, or it's way out of square, blah blah blah. So I always do this. This is the way I do it. I tape the corners tape them on both sides, and it really holds the door together well. And then I'll square it up, make sure my miters are pretty tight, and then I'll take it to where I'm gonna, which you'll see in a second, I'll take it to where they go, or they're gonna be installed, and just make sure that they are actually the correct size. Because if they're not, then I can either mill up a new piece if I need one piece, or mill up a new door and then do all the work of gluing and stuff like that, and then wasting a panel cut. So here I am gonna test them. As you can see, I'm a master tester. But I almost went with glass. I mean, it would have been sweet when I put these up there. It kind of looks nice, honestly. I love the glass look with walnut. With anything, honestly, it looks nice. But it would have looked pretty sweet with this cabinet. I know the dry bar system had a couple that I built had a few glass doors, so that was kind of cool. Well, a couple of glass doors, I guess. So yeah, they fit well. There was a gap in the middle, which I knew was going to be there, and so. I'm not sure why I left the gap in the center, in the middle of it, but it wasn't ginormous, but it was definitely a decent size compared to most cabinets. And then again, just make sure, test it, make sure you are good on measurements, and I just stacked them so I can just do one measurement, write it down, cut the panel, stick it in, call it good. Still writing. Man, I am the slowest person when it comes to this stuff. You know what they say? Measure 14 times and cut once. No, I've had plenty of times where, you know, it's funny because a lot of people think, like, oh, I'm just bad at measuring. I'm like, no, I don't think you're bad at measuring. I think you just measure once and you cut once. That's usually honestly the biggest issue is like if I measure once, I'll probably mess up so many cuts because I'm always either looking at it too fast or I look at it and I'm like, oh, it's probably the same, and so I just take a glance instead of measuring it. So I always try to go back and if I'm unsure of something, I will go back and measure. That is definitely going to happen because I have had times where I've had to literally cut new pieces and I'm like, this is dumb. I could have just taken 1 second and measured the piece. And so definitely important. Just do it. You know, don't waste your time. Just get the job done. All right, cutting those panels. So crazy thing is, again, using scraps. I feel like I'm so cheap. But anyways, I was using scraps for this door on the panels, and I didn't have a wide enough panel, 1/4-inch panel, to get the big door at the bottom, the full panel width. So I had to take 2 panels, and I tried to do like some sort of dado with a dado and like tongue and groove pretty much for the 2 panels, and it's a 1/4-inch panel, so you don't have much room to work with. Did not work out that great. It worked out fine for what I needed it for, but I will not do that again unless I have a better jig or something I can do it with. But I mean, essentially I'm not going to do that again because I'd rather just get the right size panel and do 1 panel. That is just the dumbest thing you could probably do. But you know me, I just like to I like to make the most use out of things if I can. So here I am doing that. As you can see, the MDF is showing through the veneer, so that will kind of slide into the dado on the side, or not on the side, the dado in the center to create 1 panel. All right, so here is the finished product, this masterpiece. It's something that I will never do again because it was the dumbest idea, but it worked for this one project. Crazy kid. All right, so here I'm putting up the dartboard. I'm putting in the screws for the dartboard because they had 2 spots in the back that they would hook into and slide down essentially, like any normal hanging piece. And so now I am hiding behind it because I'm in shame for some reason. What am I doing? I'm probably just, I don't know what I'm doing. There we go. Here I am. I'm back, guys. I'm back. Don't worry. Do not worry. I am back to screwing these in. Oh, I probably just had the wrong bit. I found out real quick that doing this by hand was not the best way, so I quickly switch over to a drill after this one because my wrist. I don't know if you guys have ever drilled or like screwed something with a long screw in with a screwdriver. Oh my goodness, man, it kills your wrist. Maybe I just have bad wrist. So yeah, I take this different approach here, and that was a lot smoother, a lot faster. And boom, that's up. Measure that out. Take time in measuring that stuff out. Don't skimp on it. Make sure you have it right, because it does help out a lot. You want everything to sit well and sit firm and not wobble around. So there, that was set in. And I personally like to have cork as my like a cork dartboard, but they liked electronics. They didn't want to keep score, is what he told me. So I think it's funny, but it makes sense. I get it. But I just like the cork. I like it a lot better. So this is the way I'm going to be mounting the entire shelf. So there's going to be one cleat at the very top. It's going to sit on the floor, but the cleat at the top it'll grab it, sit in the cleat on the wall, and then it'll keep it from falling forward. And it's simple and easy. There's no reason to like anchor this thing into the wall, because it's not like giant, it's not super heavy, and it's not needed really. So that's what I'm doing here, the cleats. All right, so this is one of my little jigs, simple, needed jig to cut. Goodness gracious, what are those called? I can't even, splines for my corners of my doors. And I do this on all my miter doors because end grain to end grain miters are not very strong. So I want my furniture to last a long time. Therefore, I reinforce it with a spline. So I'll cut splines for this, and I'll fill them in with these little splines. That's what they're called, I guess. And boom, just like that. I'll glue them in, and I'll come back and trim off the rest. And so it makes it really easy, because you want to have some extra support. You don't want a door to fall apart, down the road, because you never know how rough people are with their furniture. That's why you probably get a lot of furniture and it falls apart, because whether you have kids or yourself, and all the racking and stuff over the years just causes a lot of stress, and therefore your furniture goes kaput. Kaput is in my dictionary. So yep, kaput. If you don't like it, too bad. All right, so put a good amount of glue in there, so you can obviously the splines stay in and they don't fall out. But as long as you get some squeeze out there, it's good, because you can clean it up with a router or just with your finger, whatever you end up doing. All right, so we are going to go ahead and start sanding this bad boy down again. I love this part of sanding because it makes the piece spectacular. So we'll zoom on past this, because I don't even know why I show the sanding portion, but I think it's important to understand how important it is to sand. I'm sanding at 150, so I sand at 150 every time I go to spray. If I spray finish, I don't like spray finishing because it just stinks and it's really not good for you. And sometimes in my shop, it's been rough because it's been humid and it's hot or it's cold, and I don't have good regulation of the temperature. So it's been really tough. So I like natural finishes a lot better, and they smell better, they're better for you. And honestly, like they do really, really good job as far as just durability. So for this one, I'm going to spray. Spraying cabinets though, it can be tough, and I'll show you in a bit why. All right, so for the final touch on the doors is the handles. And so it's kind of funny. You might have seen it in the 3D model, but I didn't know what to do with the handles. I like to try to make stuff pretty unique if I can in any area. So I made these handles look like arrows, like it was like a dart, and they're pointing up pretty much towards the dartboard. And so I thought that would be a cool idea. So I ended up making these out of maple. I did a different color, so I wanted to contrast with it, and I wanted to be able to see it kind of as a centerpiece. They're really not that special, but to me they're special. Okay, so get off my back. To be honest, they weren't really my favorite handle of all time. So far, I haven't made any handles that I really like that much, to be honest. I should probably spend a little more time on the design of the handles, but so this is kind of the idea. So it'll be the same thing on the other side, and it'll look like a big arrow. But they work out great, so that's all that matters. As long as the door opens, right, and you can actually open the door, that's the important part. But yeah, there's a lot of importance to design. You want to make sure you do the right thing. I did design every single piece I've made so far in their basement I designed. So the dry bar system, you can go on my Facebook or Instagram or whatever and you can look at those. The dry bar system and the corner bench, I designed both of those, and I designed this as well. I am not a design professional, but sometimes I wish I was. I think I like to act like I am, but I'm really not. Alright, so here I'm trimming off. I used to cut these splines off with a knife, or not a knife, a small like flush trim saw, goodness gracious. Flush cut saw. But it always like left saw marks, and it wasn't always the cleanest, and I tended to rush it because it was just kind of annoying. And it would rip off pieces and pretty much cut out a chunk of the corner, and then it was just a mess, and I had to fill it or fix it. And so this is a lot better. Sometimes you can get this where it catches a corner. If your bit's not that sharp, it'll catch a corner and rip out the corner a little bit of the spline. And so that's something to be careful with too. Take your time on this part. Don't rush it. Try to make the best passes you can. As you can tell, I'm not being smart, and I'm holding the piece down on the table instead of just clamping it real quick. I like to do things not the safest way sometimes, and that is why I shouldn't say the safest way, but it's definitely not because that's not really not safe. It's just probably a lot better and a lot more smooth of an action if I'm doing like steps like clamping stuff down. So this is a cool little trick. If you ever have dents or small scratches, minor scratches in your piece, and it's hardwood, you can do it on veneer too, but hardwood it's a lot easier. There's more wood to work with. Then you can soak it with water, let it sit for a bit, soak the napkin in water or whatever you're using, and then use the iron to iron it out because the heat will help raise it, and then you'll sand it back down. All right, so what I was talking about earlier about spraying the cabinets. So as you can tell, it's sunny out, it's hot. Not the best place to spray, but I can't spray in the school because it gets in the school. Because the classrooms are right next to the shop. Not the greatest. And as you can see, I'm slowly losing video here because my camera's falling. It's funny, the entire process I've been just recording this, I've had to set my camera up. Not the entire process, but I had to set it up on stuff because my tripod was broke. It was already broken, and it was working for the most part, and then it finally broke, and I threw it across the shop because I really don't like it. So now I need to get a new tripod. So you can hear. So as you can see here, there's a lot of oversprays. All that like smoke, I guess, or fog that was coming up, that was getting all over everywhere. So it makes it really hard to spray. I had to run across with some and touch it up with some actual, the entire piece actually up there. I wiped on some poly, and it was definitely turned out a lot better. And so spraying is nice, and it makes things a lot easier when you know how to do it really well. And I'm still learning it. But again, spraying also is just horrible for you to breathe in, because even with a mask on, I was getting a ton of the VOCs. Alright, so now I'm just putting on the hinges. I thought these hinges are kind of cool. So I usually use, for most of my furniture and cabinets, I use hidden hinges, concealed hinges I guess they're called, which are inside the door, and they mount on the face of the frame instead of the side. It hides the hinge so when you open it, but these actually look really nice, and it kind of give it a old style door system and hinges, and I thought that was really cool, and it was really nice. It turned out really nice, and you'll see here probably soon how nice it really turned out. The only downside to these hinges though is you literally don't have much room. Like, you can't make a mistake because they don't adjust. The concealed hinges, like the Euro concealed hinges I use, they adjust, so I don't have to be perfect. I almost knocked over mine. I'm just so cool. Look at that. I should be a woodworking cowboy. What a dork. Alright, so got to do the other side hinges, but yeah, you have to be really accurate with these, or else you don't got anywhere to really move. If you drill it in the wrong spot, then you have the issue of like trying to fill those holes, move it, and if you know about screwing stuff in, if you screw a screw in one spot and you have a hole and you try to move it up like a centimeter, it's just going to slip right back into that hole, and it's going to just be really annoying. So you have to get these things down right the first time, and just take your time on them. That's all I gotta say. Just take your time. I mean, that's just the rule of thumb for furniture. Take your time, enjoy the process, enjoy the build. Don't focus so much on trying to just get stuff out the door. Just enjoy it. All right, everyone. So here is the final product. I really hope you enjoyed the build, and please like, subscribe, comment, and share this video. This will help me be able to get more video and content out to you. I really want it to be a help to you so you can also enjoy builds and be able to do it yourself. Have a great day. God bless.